All right, if you guys would find your textbooks, and I'm going to have you turn to page 185 in your textbooks. Should be turning to page 185. All right, we're going to take a look at the warm up here. So we've got 5 problems. If you would please, once you turn to page 185 and you're looking at your word problems, if you would please pause this video. Yes, that means you. And complete the warm up. Okay, you're going to complete the first 5 questions here. And it's saying express each percent as a decimal and as a fraction. Okay, express each decimal or percent as a decimal and as a fraction. All right, so I'm going to go down here so we have a little bit more room to work. So number 1, I'm at 47% now, or 47. Yeah. So to turn this into a decimal, there's 2 ways that you guys can do it. You can turn it into a fraction and then place it into a decimal. When you look at the percent, to go from a percent to a decimal, I'm going to take my invisible percent right here, and I'm going to move it to the left 2 times. And I'm going to get 0.47. Okay, it's always going to be moved to the left 2 times. No matter if you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so on and so forth, it will always be moved to the left 2 times. Then to turn this into a fraction, I see that my furthest number out is in the hundredths place, and I'm going to have 47 over 100. 47 over 100. Okay, and that cannot reduce, so I'm going to leave it alone. Now, number 2, that is 3%. Now remember, I said I'm going to take my decimal and I'm going to move it 2 times to the left no matter what. And anything that looks like a blank, it's going to be placed as a 0. So it's going to be 0.03 or 3 over 100. Number 3 here, let me do this way. Number 3 is 12.5%. I'm going to take the decimal and move it to the left 2 times. And I'm going to get 0.125. Okay. I see this is in the thousands place, so I'm going to have 125 over 1,000. Well, I see that I have a 5 and a 0, so I'm going to divide both top and bottom by 5. And 125 divided by 5 is 25. And 1,000 divided by 5 is 200. I'm going to divide it by 5 again. Well, 25 divided by 5 is 5. 200 divided by 5 is 40. And then I'm going to divide it by 5 one more time to get 1 over 8. 1 over 8. All right. Number 4. This one is 0.25%. I'm going to take the decimal and I'll move it 2 times to the left. And I'm going to get 0.0025. And this one as a fraction, I'm in the 10,000ths place, is 0.0025 over 10,000. And I'm going to leave that one there. I'm not going to go any further. And then number 5, the very last one, it is 4.99%. Turning that into a decimal, I'm going to take my decimal place. I'm going to move it 2 times to the left here. And I'm going to get 0.0499. And I'm in the 10,000ths place again. So I'm going to have 0.0499 over 10,000. Oh, over 10,000. There you go. Now you guys can see it. All right. Here we go. Looking at activity 2.1, introduction to percent equations. Okay, introduction to percent equation. Now that many people own phones with built-in calculators, some calculate the exact tip for their restaurant bill rather than using the rounding and benchmark percents. Suppose you want to determine the recommended 15% on a restaurant bill of $45. You can use a proportion to determine the amount of a tip based on the restaurant total. Okay, so number 1, write a proportion that can be used to determine the amount of tip based on the restaurant total. All right, well, this is my part equals percent, part over whole equals percent over 100. Okay. So part over whole equals percent over 100. Okay. Well, I don't know my part. My total is 45. Okay. My percent is 15 over 100. Okay. All right. You can also use a percent equation to determine the tip amount on a restaurant bill. A percent equation can be written in the form of percent times whole equals part, where the percent is often written as a decimal. It will always be written as a decimal. Okay, so here's an example. Percent is a decimal times the whole is equal to the part. So the tip percent, which is 15, so that's written as a decimal of 0.15, times my total bill of 45 is equal to my part, okay? And 0.15 times 45 is $6.75. Now, this is not what you would leave in all. This is how much you're going to leave in your tip. So if you are asked the question, how much do they pay after tips? That's when you're going to add this back to the 45 to get your final answer. Look, let's take a look here. So analyze the worked example. Describe how the percent equation in the form percent equals time percent times whole is equal to part is written. Part is a part. There we go. Is equivalent to a proportion in the form percent equals part over whole. Okay. So in order to get to part, we see that we have my percent is equal to part over whole. My goal here is to get part by itself. Well, right now I'm dividing it by W. So to get part by itself, I'm going to need to multiply by W on both sides to get part by itself. Okay. To have part is equal to percent times the whole. All right. Explain how the variable is isolated. Then describe how the tip amount is calculated using the percent equation. Well, that's what we did. We just described on how we got P to be alone to get part is equal to the percent times the whole. And how we calculate the tip amount from this is that this right here is the percent left of tip, okay? And this is the total bill. This one's based on total bill. Because I'm going to take my total bill, which was $45. I'm going to multiply it by the percent because I want to know what is going to be percent. What percent of this am I going to leave? Okay. And that's how we calculate it. All right. Best and easy way to do this is to do some examples. All right. Number 3, use proportions and percent equation to calculate tips on the given restaurant bills. For each, isolate the variable first, then determine the tip amount. Finally, write your answer in a complete sentence. All right, so here we go. I have my bill of $63.89. My percent is 20. So remember, our proportion is part over whole equals percent over 100. So part over 63.89 is equal to, is equal to 20 over 100. Okay. So my equation is part equals percent times the whole. So part is equal to 0.20 times 63.89. Part equals, I'm going to come over here, 63.89 times 0.20. Well, 0 times anything is 0. Okay, once I'm done, I'll place the placeholder. 2 times 9 is 18. 2 times 8 is 16, plus 1 more is 17. Carry the 1. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 more is 7. 2 times 6 is 12. 0, 8, 7, 7, 2, 1. 2 decimal places here. 2 decimal places here. Well, 4 in all. So 1, 2, 3, 4. To get 12.7, and I'll go right here for the money. So I'm going to look at this one, and it tells me to round up to 2.78. Okay. So my tip amount is 2.78. So for a sentence, it's saying for a bill of $63.89 and a 20% tip, I will leave $12.78. That's what it's asking me. All right. Now, if we were to use the proportion, how would we be able to calculate this? What we would still do is do 20 times this. Okay, so my percent times my entire bill. We would divide it by 100, which would get us to our decimal for 0.20, which would be the exact same thing just to get for part. All right, let's try the next one. So I'm locating my part. My bill is $24.40. My percent is 15 over 100. So part is equal to 0.15 times 24.40. Part is equal to, so let's come over here off to the side. So 24.40 times 0.15. 5 times 4 is 20. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 2 more is 22. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 2 more is 12. Add my placeholder. 1 times 0 is 0. 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 2 is 2. Going to add everything up. So 4 plus 2 is 6. 4 plus 2 is 6. 2 plus 1 is 3. I have 2 decimal places here, 2 decimal places here. So 4 and also 1, 2, 3, 4. So my tip is $3.66. Okay. So for a bill of $24.40 and a 15% tip, I will leave, where is it? $3.66. $3.66. All right. So describe how the strategies you use to solve the proportions and the percent equations are similar. Well, that's what we just discussed. Is that if we were to solve this through our proportions, we would use the butterfly method. So we would do 6389 times 20 and divide it by 100, which 20 divided by 100, we learned in our warm-up, that's the same thing as having 0.20. So we would still do 0.20 times our total bill to get to our part, no matter which way we look at it. Okay. All right. Activity 2.2, strategies for calculating percent. Okay. So restaurant servers are not the only people provided with tips for a job well done. Skylar is a hairstylist at a salon. Her clients pay their bills at the front desk, but give her cash for her tips. She wondered what her typical tip percent was. So she calculated the tip percent received for each client on a specific day. So Skylar's first client of the day spent $150 to have her hair dyed and cut. Skylar was given a $30 tip. She wants to know what percent. Now, you can use both ways now. Does not matter. You can use this way of use a proportion to find percent over 100 equals part over whole. Okay, percent over 100 equals part over whole. And then, 30 times 100 divided by 150, which is what they did. They used the cross product here, okay, to get me 30 times 100 is equal to 150t. The one step that they left off is divide by 150 on both sides to get t by itself. So that's how they went from here to here to see that t was 20. You can also use your equation. So percent times the whole is equal to the part, where I'm unsure of my percent. I know my total is 150 and my part is 30. Well, it's the exact same concept here. Is how do I get t by itself? Oh, I'm going to divide by 150 on both sides, get t alone, and 30 divided by 150 is 0.2. And then I can turn this, move my decimal 2 times to the right to get 20%. Okay. Explain why Skylar's method results in different values for t. What percent did Skylar receive for her client? Well, now that's kind of what we were just discussing here. Is by using this right here, I have a whole number of 20. Well, I know that this t variable, okay, this t variable, it represents my percent as a whole number. This t right here, it represents my percent as a decimal, where I need to move my decimal 2 times to the right in order to get to my whole percent. Okay. All right. Number two. Calculate the tip percent for Skylar's next two clients. Use both proportions and percent equations in the table shown. For each problem, isolate the variable first, then calculate the answer. Finally, write your answer in a complete sentence. All right. So remember, our proportion is part over a whole equals percent over 100. And our equation is part is equal to percent times the whole. Now, I know my total. I know my tip amount. I do not know my percent. So 15 over 80 is equal to percent over 100. Okay. My equation is 15 is equal to percent times 80. And we're going to find out what our percent is equal to. So I'm going to come over here off to the side here. 15 is equal to percent times 80. Well, in order to get percent by itself, I need to divide by 80. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other. To get percent is going to equal 15 over 80. Well, let's take a look. 15 over 80. I know I can divide both of these by 5. Well, 15 divided by 5 is 3. Okay. And let's see, 80 divided by 5 is going to be 16. I can divide this here again by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 16 divided by 3. Actually, no, I cannot. Oops, my bad. I can't. I was thinking that was 18 for some reason. All right, now that I'm at 16 or 3 over 16. Okay, now that I'm at 3 over 16, I'm going to divide. So the bottom number goes on the outside. So 16 over 3. Well, 16 can't go into 3, but it can go into 30. What, can it go into 32 times? No, it can go into 30 one time to have 16. Well, 30 minus 16 is 14. Add a 0, bring it down. Okay, I'm using my handy dandy calculator here to help me. So 140 divided by 16, it can go in there 8 times. So 8 times 16 is 128. 128 is 12. Add a 0. Okay, I'm going to go until I can get to 4 numbers here. 120 into 16 is 7. So 7 times 16 is 112. Well, I have 8 left over. Bring down my 0. 80 can go into 16 5 full times with nothing left over. So I'm going to have 0.1875. Now, this is a decimal. In order to get from percent to a decimal, I need to move it 2 times to the right to get that my percent amount is going to equal $18.75. Okay. So for this, Skylar's client left a 18.75% tip. Okay. All right, let's try another one here. So I'm going to have 10 over 80 is equal to percent over 100. I'm going to have 10 is equal to percent times 80. Percent is equal to, all right, so let's go over here. So I'm going to have 10 is equal to percent times 80. Get percent by itself, so I'm going to divide both sides by 80. To have percent is equal to 10 over 80. So 10 over 80, I'm going to divide both top and bottom by 10. 10 divided by 10 is 1. 80 divided by 10 is 8. Okay. I'm going to see what is this as a decimal. So 1 divided by 8. Well, it can't go into 1. So I'm going to have to add a 0. So I'm going to have 2, add a 0, bring down a 0. 8 can go into 22 times. That's 16. 4, add a 0, bring it down. 8 can go into 45 times with nothing left over. So my percent is 0.125, which this is going to have to move 2 times to the right to get me to 12.5%. So Skylar's client left a 12.5% tip. 12.5% tip. If you guys have any questions on any of that, please let us know.